Have you ever wondered what really happens in a man's mind when you go silent? When you stop calling, stop texting, stop pouring all your energy into holding the connection together, something unexpected happens. At first, his ego flares up. He's confused, maybe even irritated, because he's used to you being there, available, forgiving, and keeping the spark alive. But now, you've given him nothing but space. And in that silence, he's forced to confront his own feelings. The wrong man might scramble for control, sending breadcrumb texts or playing little games, not because he cares, but because he hates losing power. The right man, though, he starts reflecting. He replays every conversation in his head, wondering if he took you for granted, asking himself why he feels this sudden emptiness. Silence reveals everything, whether his effort was real or just convenient, whether he values you or just valued access to you. Because when you step back, he finally realizes your presence was never guaranteed. And that's when the truth about him finally comes out. What happens next isn't about him, it's about whether he's capable of stepping up or showing you why he never deserved you in the first place. You know what's interesting? Most people think that when they pull back, the other person immediately starts thinking about them. They think silence is this magic trick that makes someone realize how much they care. But that's not entirely how it works. Silence isn't magic. It's not a strategy to manipulate someone. What it does do, though, is create space. And in that space, a man is forced to confront his own feelings in a way he couldn't when you're filling every gap with your words, your energy, your reassurance. Think about it. As long as you're texting, calling, explaining yourself, or even just making yourself emotionally available to him, he doesn't have to do much emotional work. He doesn't have to ask himself the hard questions. He doesn't have to figure out how he actually feels about you, because your presence is there to soothe whatever discomfort he might feel. You're holding up the emotional weight of the connection, but the moment you go quiet, when you stop trying to keep the conversation alive, stop pouring energy into keeping him comfortable, there's nothing left for him to lean on except his own thoughts. And for a lot of men, that's the moment when the noise dies down and they actually hear their own feelings for the first time. At first, he might not even realize what's happening. He'll probably go about his day like nothing has changed. He might tell himself, she's probably just busy. She'll text later. And for a while, he might be fine with that. But as the hours or days go by, a strange kind of unease starts creeping in. He starts checking his phone a little more often. He notices the absence of your name lighting up his notifications. It's subtle at first, but it grows. That's because human beings are creatures of habit. And when you've been the one showing up, initiating, keeping things flowing, he's grown used to that rhythm. When that rhythm stops, it feels jarring. Now, here's the key distinction. There are two ways he can respond in this space. Some men feel the unease, but quickly push it down. They'll distract themselves, dive into work, scroll social media, or hang out with friends to avoid sitting in that discomfort. Why? Because they don't want to confront what it actually means. They don't want to ask, do I miss her because I like her, or do I miss her because I liked the attention? Those are big questions, and not every man is ready or willing to answer them honestly. But then there's the man who can't quite shake it, the one who finds himself lying awake at night, replaying your last few conversations in his head. He's asking himself, why hasn't she reached out? Did I say something? Was I too distant? Do I even want her to reach out, or do I want to reach out myself? That's when something powerful happens. He's no longer relying on you to define the connection. He's starting to define it for himself. Silence gives him the space to feel what he feels without you feeding it to him. And more importantly, that statement, without you feeding it to him, and that's so important because when someone comes back to you after you've gone quiet, you want it to be because they chose to, not because you nudged them into it with reminders of your value. You want him to sit with the absence of you and realize it doesn't feel right. That's the only way you can be sure his feelings are real, not just a reaction to your effort. Here's what a lot of people don't realize. If a man genuinely cares, the silence won't sit comfortably with him. It will start to bother him. It'll make him question if he took you for granted, if he gave you enough, if he might lose you for good. That's when the real clarity kicks in, not just for him, but for you too. Because when he comes back, you'll know he did so out of his own volition, not because you handed him a map back to you. But let's be honest. Sometimes silence doesn't pull him closer. Sometimes he doesn't come back at all. Now, if he is a nasty bitch, sometimes he doesn't come back at all. Sometimes he doesn't come back at all. Sometimes he doesn't come back at all. And that's hard. It's tempting to think, maybe I should have said more, done more, explained myself better. But that's just the fear talking. The truth is, silence doesn't push away a man who was truly invested. It only reveals the one who wasn't. It shows you whether he was there for you or for the comfort you brought him. And isn't that what you want to know? Because the man who really feels something for you, he's not going to let silence stretch on forever. He'll pick up the phone, he'll text, he'll call, not out of panic or ego, but because the absence of you makes him realize what he had and he doesn't want to risk losing it. That's the beauty of silence. It's not about punishing someone. It's not about mind games. It's about letting the truth surface, his truth and yours. And sometimes the most powerful move you can make isn't chasing, explaining, or proving your worth. It's stepping back and letting him feel the weight of your absence. Because in that silence, he either realizes your value or he shows you he never truly saw it in the first place. And both answers, as hard as they might be, are a gift. When you decide to go silent, when you decide to step back and stop feeding the connection, something fascinating happens. At first, it's not his heart that reacts, it's his ego. It's not the part of him that loves you or misses you, it's the part of him that's been used to having your attention on demand. And when that attention suddenly disappears, there's a moment of panic, not because he's lost you, but because he's lost the feeling of being in control. You see, a lot of men, especially those who have been getting consistent validation from you, start to believe that your presence, your energy, your love are all constants in their life. They assume they don't have to work for it anymore because you've made it so easy for them. And then one day, you don't call. You don't text. You're not there replying instantly to his messages or filling the space with effort. And in that silence, his first thought isn't, oh no, I've lost someone who really mattered to me. His first thought is, wait, where did my source of validation go? Why isn't she responding? Why isn't she chasing anymore? This is the moment where his ego flares up. He might even feel frustrated or confused, not because he's deeply invested, but because he's addicted to the idea that he has access to you whenever he wants, like he's been drinking from a tap that's always been flowing, and now the water's been shut off. His reaction is more about the inconvenience than the loss. And this is why it's so important to give a man space sometimes, to stop talking, stop explaining, stop trying to prove your worth. Because silence doesn't just create room for him to miss you, it reveals what's actually driving his behavior. If he was only there for the attention, he's going to notice its absence and want to pull it back, not because he values you, but because he values how you make him feel about himself. This is when you have to be careful. When his ego is triggered, he might start testing the waters. He'll send a casual hey or a random meme just to see if you'll bite. He's not reaching out because he's ready to pour into the relationship. He's reaching out because he wants to know if he still has that control over you. And if you instantly respond with the same energy as before, he's reassured. He thinks, I've still got her. I don't need to worry. And guess what? He goes right back to putting in minimal effort. But when you stay silent, when you don't jump the moment he throws you crumbs, he's forced to reckon with something much deeper. When the reconciling, the major psychological risks that people have with permissiveness, with bullying, with harm, with hurt. He's forced to reckon with something much deeper and profounder than he would have otherwise. He's at risk, the rest of you. The minute you attack, he starts asking himself, why isn't she responding? Did she lose interest? Did I push her away? Is there someone else? This is the point where you find out whether there's real substance there or if it was all about his ego all along. A man whose heart is truly in it won't let silence stretch on forever. He won't just sit back and accept that you've disappeared. He'll reach out not to control you, but to understand you. He'll ask real questions. He'll want clarity because the connection mattered to him on a level beyond his pride. But a man who was only in it for validation, he'll either disappear or get angry. He'll try to guilt you, manipulate you, or reassert dominance, not out of love, but out of fear of losing his power over you. This is where your power lies. Your silence is not about playing games. It's about stepping back so the truth can reveal itself. You're not punishing him. You're giving both of you the space to see whether this was ever real. Because the right man will respond to your silence with vulnerability, with care, with effort. The wrong man will respond with ego, with defensiveness, or with nothing at all. And that's the clarity you've been needing. So when you go silent, don't fear his reaction. Don't sit there wondering if he's thinking about you every second. Instead, pay attention to how he shows up, or if he shows up at all, because his first reaction isn't the one that matters. It's what he does after the initial ego rush fades that tells you everything you need to know. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can say is nothing at all. When you pull back and go quiet, something very interesting happens. The kind of man you're dealing with is suddenly revealed, not by what he says in moments of comfort, but by how he responds to discomfort. And this is where so many people get confused. You see, when a man feels your silence, he feels a void he didn't expect. And not all men handle that void the same way. Some will come back towards you, not because they genuinely value you, but because they can't stand losing the sense of control they thought they had. For them, your silence isn't about you, it's about their own ego being bruised. It's about the fact that they're no longer dictating the rhythm of the connection. And that loss of power feels deeply uncomfortable. So, what do? They might reach out quickly with charm or even urgency. Maybe they send a flurry of texts or try to reignite your attention with sweet words or nostalgia. But if you pay attention, their energy isn't coming from a place of care or understanding. It's coming from fear of losing control, fear of no longer being the one you orbit round. This is the man who, when you respond, relaxes again and often slips right back into the same patterns that made you pull away in the first place. He didn't reach out to grow, to ask what went wrong, or to understand your needs. He reached out because his comfort was interrupted. But then there's a different kind of man. A man who, when you go silent, isn't driven by ego, but by clarity. He feels the gap too, but instead of scrambling to fill it with control or superficial effort, he pauses and reflects. He begins to ask himself questions like, why is she pulled away? Was there something in my actions, or lack of them, that led her to feel she needed space? He doesn't assume he can just step back in, as if nothing happened. He approaches with humility, not entitlement. When this man reaches out, his energy feels different. So this is where we see he feels it's slower, more thoughtful. He doesn't come to pull you back into orbit around him. He comes to understand where you are and what you feel. He asks questions. He listens. He doesn't try to convince you of how much he cares. He shows it through his actions and his willingness to meet you at a deeper level. And here's what's important to understand. This distinction between the two men is often invisible when you're always available, always explaining, always giving. It only becomes clear when you stop feeding the connection with your energy. Silence isn't about playing games. It's not about punishing him or testing him. It's about stepping back so you can see whether what he brings to the table is real or just reactive. Because the man who comes back seeking control will often sound convincing in the moment. He might say all the right things. But if you lean in too soon, his efforts often evaporate the moment he feels reassured he still has you. It's like he was running towards a finish line, and as soon as he crosses it, he stops running. The man who comes back seeking clarity, though, he's not running to a finish line. He's running towards understanding, towards resolution, towards building something stronger. And that's the man worth paying attention to, because he's not fighting for his ego. He's fighting for the connection, for the possibility of something deeper and more meaningful between you. And here's the truth. Silence is uncomfortable for both of you, but it's in that discomfort that the truth surfaces. You'll see whether he steps forward with intention or whether he fades back into his old patterns. You'll see whether his actions match his words or if he was only ever fighting not to lose rather than fighting to love. So when you go silent and he reacts, don't get caught up in the noise of his initial response. Look deeper. Feel the energy behind his actions. Ask yourself, is he reaching for me because he wants me or because he wants the power he feels slipping away? And then remember, the man who truly values you won't just want you back. He'll want to understand you. Because when a man is serious, your silence doesn't make him panic. It makes him wake up. When you pull back and go silent, something powerful happens. You stop giving him the comfort of your presence. And for the first time, he has to face a question he's never really considered. Was my effort real or was it just circumstantial? See, a lot of people mistake consistency for commitment. They think, well, he was calling me every night. He was texting good morning every day. He was making plans to see me. So he must care, right? But what they don't realize is that sometimes effort isn't about true emotional investment. Sometimes it's about routine, about convenience, about the role you're playing in someone's life at that moment. When you go silent, you interrupt that rhythm. You take yourself out of the equation. Suddenly, he's not getting the dopamine hit of your replies, the warmth of your voice, or the reassurance of knowing you're always there on the other end of the phone. And this is when the truth starts to surface. If his effort was circumstantial, if he was showing up only because it was easy, because you were feeding his ego, or because there was nothing else distracting him, your silence will expose it. He'll feel the gap, but instead of trying to fill it with meaningful action, he'll let it widen. Maybe he disappears altogether. Maybe his texts slow down. Maybe he doesn't even notice right away, because the truth is, he was never emotionally invested enough to feel your absence deeply. And I know that hurts to hear, because we all want to believe that the person we've given our time and energy to was showing up because they valued us, not because it was convenient. But your silence isn't about punishing him. It's about protecting yourself from building a life around someone whose effort isn't rooted in real care. On the other hand, if his effort was real, silence pulls something very different out of him. A man who truly values you won't be able to sit in that quiet for long. He'll notice the difference immediately. He'll start to feel the space you've left behind, and it won't feel good to him. Not because his ego is bruised, but because he misses you. He misses the energy you brought into his life, the way you made things lighter, the way you made him feel seen. This is the man who will reach out, not with performative gestures to regain control, but with genuine curiosity and care. He'll want to know what's changed, what he can do, where he stands with you. He'll step forward because silence has shown him something vital. Your presence is not guaranteed, and he can't afford to lose it. But here's the tricky part. In the moment when you pull back, your mind will play games with you. It will whisper, what if he doesn't notice? What if he never reaches out? What if I lose him forever? And the temptation will be to break the silence, to check in, to send a quick text, just to see if he's still there. But if you do that too soon, you rob yourself of the clarity that silence was about to deliver. Silence is like turning the lights on in a dark room. It can be uncomfortable at first, but then you see what's really there. It's not about making him chase you. It's about stepping back far enough to see whether he's even willing to. Because a relationship worth your time isn't one where you have to keep pulling the weight, where you're always the one bridging the gaps and keeping the connection alive. It's one where the other person meets you halfway, where their effort is consistent even when you're not the one driving it. So when you go silent, watch carefully. Don't just listen to the words that come back to you. Look at the actions. Does he step into the silence with intentionality, or does he let it echo? Does he show up with real energy, or does he disappear, leaving you to wonder what you ever meant to him? Either way, the silence gives you an answer. And sometimes the most painful answer is also the most freeing one, because it tells you, without any need for drama or arguments, that you are investing in someone who wasn't truly invested in you. And that's your cue to let go. Not because you're not worthy of love, but because you deserve someone whose effort is not circumstantial, but unconditional. And if he does step up, if he comes to you not out of panic, but with calm, steady intent, that's when you know his effort was never about convenience. It was about you. The beauty of silence is that it doesn't demand anything. It doesn't manipulate. It doesn't push. It simply creates space. And in that space, the truth rises to the surface. Because the person who values you will make sure you never have to wonder twice. When you go silent, something very interesting happens in a man's mind. At first, he doesn't really notice. He assumes you're just busy, maybe preoccupied with work or your friends, but as the hours turn into days and you're not texting, not calling, not even liking his posts like you usually do, there's this shift. Suddenly, he's not just living his life anymore. He's thinking about you, and not in a casual way. He starts replaying every interaction in his mind, almost like a movie stuck on a loop. He's trying to figure out if he said something wrong, if he did something that pushed you away, or if you're just done. You see, when you're constantly communicating with a man, he doesn't have to do this mental work. He's not required to analyze anything because he's still getting access to you, your energy, your affection. You're still there to reassure him, even if it's indirectly. But when you stop feeding that dynamic, when you go silent, all he has left are his memories of you, and that's when his brain kicks into overdrive. He starts scrolling back through your texts, looking for clues. He replays your conversations, not because he's bored, but because he's searching for signs. Signs that maybe you're upset, maybe you lost interest, maybe, just maybe, you realized you deserve better. This is often the first time he really begins to feel the weight of your absence. And here's what's fascinating. Men aren't as good at sitting in discomfort as women often are. Women are more likely to talk things out with friends, journal their feelings, process what they're experiencing. But men, many of them are used to avoiding those emotions altogether. So when you go silent, he can't avoid it anymore. He's forced to feel it, to think about it, and that can be incredibly uncomfortable for him. Now, depending on the kind of man he is, this can go one of two ways. If he's a guy who actually values you, who cares, who knows deep down that he didn't give you what you deserve, this silence can become the catalyst for change. He starts thinking about how he took you for granted, how he didn't put in enough effort, how he let things slide because he assumed you'd always be there. He might even start regretting not listening when you expressed your needs, not being more attentive, not making you feel like a priority. That's when you'll see him reaching out, not in a half-hearted way, but with real intention. He's texting more, calling more, maybe even showing up to see you because he doesn't want to risk losing you. But if he's not that guy, if he was only ever in it for his own convenience, then the silence will trigger a very different reaction. At first, it might spark a little irritation or confusion. He might think, why isn't she chasing me? Why isn't she keeping the conversation alive like she always does? He'll wonder what's going on, but not because he genuinely misses you, he just misses the validation. And if you stay silent long enough, he'll eventually stop caring altogether because he wasn't emotionally invested in the first place. This is why silence is so powerful. It's not about playing games or manipulating someone into caring. It's about stepping back and allowing someone to reveal who they really are when you're no longer doing all the work. It's about giving him space to decide, does he truly want me? Or did he just enjoy the version of me that made his life easier? When a man has real feelings for you, your silence doesn't make him forget you, it makes him remember you more vividly. It makes him remember your laugh, the way you looked at him, the way you made him feel like he mattered. When he's asked to make him feel like he mattered, he wants to back things up. And if he feels like he mattered, it makes him remember you more vividly. 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 He replays those little moments because they're no longer available in real time. That absence creates a vacuum that only he can fill if he chooses to. And if he doesn't, that silence gave you your answer without you having to beg for one. The irony is, the more a man starts replaying those interactions in his mind, the more he begins to realize how much power you had, not because you were trying to control him, but because you were valuable to him in ways he didn't fully understand before. And it's often in your absence, not your presence, that he finally understands how much you mattered. So if you're wondering whether going silent makes an impact, the answer is yes. It makes more of an impact than words ever could, because it forces him to sit with himself, his choices, and his feelings for you, and that's where the truth always comes out. Because a man who really wants you won't let silence be the end of the story. You see, one of the biggest mistakes people make in relationships is assuming that access to them is an unlimited resource, that no matter how little effort they give, how much they take you for granted, you'll always be there. You'll always answer the phone. You'll always pick up the pieces. You'll always forgive, even when they've done nothing to deserve it. And here's the truth. People don't value what they believe they can't lose. When you go silent, when you stop feeding their ego, stop pouring your energy into conversations that go nowhere, and stop giving them the privilege of your time, something shifts. Suddenly, they're confronted with the uncomfortable reality that maybe, just maybe, they don't have the kind of access to you they thought they did. At first, that silence feels jarring to them. They're used to you being there, replying quickly, smoothing things over, keeping the connection alive even when they've let it die on their end. But when you withdraw, when you decide that your peace is more important than their inconsistency, it's like cutting off the oxygen supply to a fire. They notice the absence of warmth. A man who is coasting on your effort will start to feel the void. He may not say it out loud, but in his head, he's wondering, why hasn't she called? Why hasn't she checked in? Why isn't she fighting for this anymore? And here's where things get interesting, because how he reacts to that silence reveals everything you need to know. The wrong man, the one who is more invested in the control than in the connection, will feel the discomfort, but not in a way that leads to growth. He might reach out with breadcrumbs, little texts, late-night calls, vague attempts to keep you on the hook, not because he misses you in any deep way, but because he hates the idea that you're no longer orbiting around him. For him, it's not about love, it's about ego, about re-establishing the dynamic where you were always the one giving and he was always the one receiving. But the right man, the man who values you, his reaction will be different. The silence won't make him angry. It will make him reflective. It will wake him up. He'll start asking himself questions he should have been asking all along. Did I show up for her in the way she deserved? Have I been taking her presence for granted? Am I at risk of losing something rare and irreplaceable because I didn't appreciate it when I had it? That silence becomes a test, not for you, but for him. It's a moment where his intentions are laid bare, because a man who cares about you isn't going to let the silence stretch on indefinitely. He's not going to sit back and hope you come running to repair things again. He's going to make a move. He's going to call. He's going to call. He's going to step up, not with empty words, but with real action that says, I see your value. I don't want to lose you. Tell me what I need to do to make this right. And if he doesn't, if your silence stretches on and he doesn't reach out, doesn't fight for you, doesn't even seem to notice you're gone, then he's just handed you your answer, hasn't he? That silence isn't just a space for him to figure things out. It's a space for you to see him clearly, to see whether he ever truly valued you or if he just valued the convenience of you. Here's the uncomfortable part for a lot of people to accept. The man who doesn't step up isn't necessarily a bad person, but he's not your person. He's not the one who sees you as the rare, extraordinary woman you are. And the longer you keep granting him unlimited access to your energy, your love, your time, the longer you're keeping yourself from someone who actually deserves it. Going silent isn't about playing games. It's not about punishing him or manipulating a reaction out of him. It's about protecting your peace and allowing space for the truth to reveal itself. When you stop over-giving, over-explaining, and over-sumptioning in the relationship, you make room for him to meet you halfway or show you that he never intended to. And here's the beautiful thing. When you reclaim your energy and stop offering it to someone who's not ready to value it, you begin to realize that your worth was never tied to how much effort you could pour into keeping someone interested. Your worth exists regardless of whether he notices your absence or not. So if you've gone silent and you're wondering how he'll react, understand this. The way he responds isn't just about him. It's a reflection of how much he values the space you hold in his life. Some men will step up and surprise you. Others will shrink away and confirm what you already suspected. Either way, your silence will give you clarity. And sometimes clarity is the greatest gift you can give yourself.